Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Men's Club podcast. My name is Mark Aylward, and I'm here with my good friend, colleague, and co host, Jim Gurley. And as I listen to myself, Jim, I have to apologize to the listeners that I'm coming off a cold, so I sound like a baritone opera singer, I suppose. But yeah, in the pregame, Jim and I were talking about something that comes at us almost every day in conversation now, which is artificial intelligence. And we were joking about how are we using it? What are we using it for? And I think we both kind of concluded like artificial intelligence in 2025, who knows? Like, who knows what is going to happen? And Jim, as you and I were talking, it's like I have people telling me all the time that they know this or they know that or want to know this or want to know that. I've taken a position that I take whenever something is thrust upon me that I'm uncertain about, and this is way above my pay grade. And AI is right there. I mean, and I told you before, I've seen a lot of new technology in my career, and some of it, the predictions came true. And people were questioning the validity of the internet way back in the day. You remember?
I do remember, and I also remember how incorrect those predictions were.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark, as you said, this one I believe is different because it's going to affect every part of our life, particularly in business or sales. For example, I was had a conversation with this is was it yeah Friday night, and he was from Austin, but was in for the holidays to visit his parents, and he was in tech sales, and so we started talking. And he was like, 26. I think he went to Berkeley. He played rugby. That's right. We started talking, but obviously, a guy had some things going, and he was in tech sales. So I said, "What, how things going?" He says, "Oh, they're going pretty good. Obviously, just bought a house in Austin." And I said, "Have you?" I said, our business, is it strong? Is it good? Is it bad?" And he says, "Well, it's kind of flat. It has been." Um, I said, "Yeah, I've been to a number of different conferences, tech conferences and AI conferences, and everybody's saying the same thing. It's really hard to get somebody on the phone. It's really hard to get somebody to make a decision because the population in general is just overwhelmed with information, right? And
Yep.
in particular with
Yep.
AI, because more information is being created at a faster rate than ever before, and pushing it out through email and all these different platforms is becoming very difficult to get somebody on the phone to make a decision.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that, as I told you in the pregame, my perspective on this, or one of them, I should say, is that I've, been a technical recruiter for 35 years. So I've watched technology come and go. And I'm a little skeptical about new innovative technology because of my history and all the predictions that were true and all the predictions that weren't true. And the notion that when something new comes out, especially of this magnitude, like AI is, so many people jump on and claim expertise and claim to be able to predict the future and claim to know. And not being a software engineer, my closest proximity to whether AI is going to work for me or not is writing. And I'm wrestling with this notion of can AI engine like that create my voice, or can it just create proper grammar, proper syntax, and proper storytelling structure? That's still fake. Like, so where is this going? Dude, I have no fucking idea, and I
Well,
don't
well, Mark,
think
it
I
will
don't think
improve over
anybody
time. We
does.
know that, like you said, all models will improve over time, and there are different types of AI models. Right? I think that's another thing, just for uh, understanding. There's computer vision models that take video and images and do things with them. There's language models. Just at a high level, there are different types of AI. But yeah, as far as language, that's done. It's over. They figured that one out. Language and text. There's those models have been created and they're being used every day. So that'll just continue to get better. In terms of how it will be used, it'll be embedded in everything we do. And I think of it as the word processor. What's that now? 15 years ago, 20 years ago? When did
Yeah,
Word come out?
more than that. Yeah. more
Is
than
it more than
that.
that? Yeah, at least 20 years ago. And
I
what
think so.
remember how it would do spell checking? It would it would do some grammar corrections, things like that. That
Hmm.
was a big deal at that time, right? Because before it was
Hmm.
a typewriter and you couldn't backspace. Um, but right out of the, like you said, right out of the gate, everything is going to get spell checked. Everything's going to get grammar checked. It'll be able to go. It already is, right? Reading an email, summarizing it. It's going to make it a lot easier to communicate. It also is going to make a lot more garbage content stuff that you're going to have to sift through to see what's there because so much text is being created by a machine, AI versus a human writing that.
Yeah, yeah. I think you and I look at writing differently, and I think that everything that you said is true, but I still, and I could be wrong, but I'm still wondering, what about the authenticity of the voice? I don't see that being able to be replicated, and I'm interested to see where it goes, and
I
but
agree with
everything
you.
else,
That's why I use the word processor as a correction of good. I think good writing, good voice will never be replaced. In fact, it'll be
then
more
we're yeah,
valuable than ever before.
yeah, it might
And
be,
and
yeah,
I that's why I use the word processor or word doc.
yeah,
It's going to fix things that you normally would have to get an editor to, or at least the first round of editing will be
yeah,
done through an AI model versus a human.
yeah.
And I see a lot of benefits to that. But yeah, in terms of a voice, like you said, just even a conversation like this, I or even good writing. Remember, it's still pulling for something. It has to be created, and humans
Yeah.
have the ability to create things based on things that are relevant. Machines only can create things based on what's already been done. And
Yeah, the other interesting thing, and I think it's kind of how we started our conversation, is this virtual assistance and the idea of delegation. It's like, well, what tasks as a solopreneur, as an experienced entrepreneur like yourself, it's like we're faced with these decisions all day. Do I do this myself or do I outsource it, give it to a VA, whatever. Well, AI comes in and it's like, well, where's the connection between things that you and I shouldn't be doing and the AI linked to outsourcing that function where there's not even a human involved. It's just an automated task. And that's going to be interesting as well because I
I
wrestle
think
with
the
that
human becomes
decision.
more valuable in the last mile. Of course, that's a logistics quote, right? It's the last mile is the hardest mile with
Mm-hmm.
freight. Um, it's kind of the same thing. It's the Toyota, right? The fit and finish comes from a human. All the other stuff can be automated.
Mm-hmm.
This will just continue to become that. But yeah, let's circle back to a couple things. First of all, this conversation I was having with him because he's in tech sales, and these tech sales guys made some really good money
Mm-hmm.
over the last few years, and they're not doing so good right now because people just are not buying software like they were, and there's a reason for that. Number one, talk about disruption. Even selling software or selling code, that's all done with this AI. Writing code is that was a very tedious, difficult task, right? For many, many years. That's it's kind of over, right? You can tell it to write code and it will write code. So what it means that you're going to have more focus on a user experience, a user uh, workflow, domain expertise that really understands every step of the user journey. Those are going to
Mm-hmm.
be super, super important skills. Um, and context is still going to be important. Machines don't do those things very well.
Yeah, it's going to
I'm an
be
AI
interesting.
optimist, just full disclosure. I think there's going to be so much more good than bad, but we are going to go through some serious disruption. And I always use in some of the examples, right? Because years ago when I was driving from, I was a cabinet maker driving over the Bay Bridge every day, I remember the toll booths, right? You had to, I got to know the guys because I would
Mm-hmm.
drive
Mm-hmm.
over and you would get to know the guys because you go through the same track. And every time I drive by that, I kind of not laugh, but what a difference, right? There is no more. They're gone. There's not
Yeah.
a single toll taker in 10 lanes, not a single guy is left.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's an example of
It is. Yeah. No,
of a
I
technology or machine that's been replaced. And I have to say, these machines do a lot better than that guy did, and they're a lot less money, and they never complain. They always show up to work. They never have to count change. It's
no, yeah, but you
there's
mean
all kinds of examples of
you start,
machines
yeah.
replacing humans.
But the you did start off by saying you missed that guy, so it's like there's a
Yeah, but I don't
there's
miss the traffic that he caused by not or the guy in front of me not having the change.
well, it is another, it does bring us to another area of like how much human interaction do we actually need, and without human interaction, where does it go? And if AI is at least in large part going to diminish human interaction, then there's definitely going to be a downside to that, and I don't know what it is, you know.
Well,
So I'm
I'll just play devil's advocate just for fun, right? Here I feel that those when you do engage a human being, because you won't engage a human from the beginning any longer. Your AI will collect information prior to engaging a human. When you have that moment with the human, they'll have so much, hopefully, better information, so that experience is the friction is removed, and that it's a much better experience because you're not spending time trying to ask them questions, or there's a language barrier, or second language barriers. Although all that shit should go away if the AI
should
should,
should
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But that hasn't been a very pleasant experience in customer service from other countries, or even, yeah, it's let's face it, there's a lot of problems with that. But
Well, I
my again,
remember.
my overall, and I'll make this prediction. I don't think it's a prediction. I think it's a obvious. Anytime the five senses will become more and more important, the five senses, because when you have a human experience and it includes all five senses, that'll be a premium. People will now not only desire that, they'll pay a premium to have that. And that
Yeah,
is, what are
yeah.
the senses, right? Sound, taste, smell, vision. What am I missing? So
Touch. Yeah,
touch, yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Anything where it includes all of those will be a premium, because there'll be less of that.
Well, it's funny that, it's, I guess, a little bit of a snapshot is like what happened with COVID. It's like stay
Mm-hmm.
in your homes, put your masks on, stop talking to other human beings. What does that do to us?
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a little bit of an experiment there. It's not good. And it's certainly not good when nobody really knows how to corral it or how to organize it or how to legislate it or whatever. It's just like, and that's what's happening in my mind with AI. It's like every time I open something up every day, somebody's legislating something, or some privacy issues a thing, or actors are complaining about their images and singers are complaining about their voices. I don't know. I mean, the legislation's going to have something to do with where this thing goes, but yeah,
Yeah, but I'm not trying to make. I'm trying to use cases. You had shared a few with me before we started the call. Um, Give me examples in the last week where you've used AI and it's helped you or improved uh, your efficiency or your productivity, or even your content. And I'll share a couple with you that just in the last couple of
yeah,
days, they're
yeah.
mind blowing. Yeah.
I think the big one for me was, I guess, the aggregation of data. So I accumulated a bunch of data, which was produced by AI engines inside of Zoom,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
transcribing my meetings, and I'm left with, at the end of a meeting, an exact replica of every exact word that was said by both parties. And over 6 or 7 weeks, I'm concluding a particular session with a group, and I'm thinking, well, wouldn't it be nice to give everybody kind of a snappy summary of just the salient points of our discussions and what we collectively learned? And I'm like, well, I've got all this great data. Number
Mm-hmm.
one, I know it's 100% accurate because I've read them, right?
Yep.
Number two, it's too much for me as a non-technical human. I don't have any tools to aggregate that, to give it to me in a digestible,
Mm-hmm.
outline format. So I gave a command to ChatGPT, fed a bunch of transcripts in, and what I got back was a beautiful summary
Yep.
that I could use to, end a session in, uplift at the end of a session, and also very valuable asset both for me, the instructor, and the students to walk away with. And it took 10 seconds.
Unbelievable. And look at the value of that. Even when you go to have your next session, you can refer back to that. There's a reference point in terms of
Mm-hmm.
where you left off. Yeah. Same with you. So now when if I'm on a call, say a sales call or somebody's trying to sell something to me, twice last week I received a email summary of the conversation. Of course, it was recorded,
Mm-hmm.
and then they automatically sent it to me. I do think somebody took some time to go through it and probably check it before they sent it,
Mm-hmm.
but very helpful, right? Than just trying to remember what you said. So this will become common when you have a Zoom call or a meeting to have this reference document.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing, Jim, I think that it benefits me because I'm not a big note taker. It's definitely one of my weaknesses. But
Mhm.
one of the other major things that what I just described gave me was you alluded to. When I'm on a conversation with someone and I'm coaching them and I'm trying to actively listen to them, I
Mhm.
don't have to think at all about what I said because I know
Mhm.
it's been captured and transcribed
Yeah,
already. So my
yeah.
mind is free to think of everything else, which is
Mhm.
that gives 50% of my brain power back to me during a session. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a great example how you're using the technology subconsciously in this case,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I do the same thing. If we're doing a say a conference call, I was on one. I think there was 8 people on the call. Um, it knows who spoke, so it's tracking each other's voice.
Mm-hmm.
You can go back and look at it, refer to again for the next call of who said what. This is remarkable as far as how much more efficient this is than the old way of
Yeah,
talk,
and
talk, talk,
if
and
if
yeah,
if you stay, you mentioned a new tool, Gemini, you were playing around with, but
yeah,
even when I stay within Chat GPT, because I just picked one and said I'll play with this for a while until I don't want it anymore, and then maybe I'll try another. But I think I've also watched GPT improve as all these tools are improving
yeah.
rapidly every day. And it's like you're starting to see, or I'm starting to see, well, I can see where this tool has learned since I last used it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We were talking about that. Just I think we did an AI podcast maybe beginning of this year, into last year, sometime
Hmm.
about AI, and
Hmm.
I don't even want to go back and listen to it because it was it was probably um, uh, well, I don't know exactly what the prediction we were making predictions, but every day that I use it, the more I like it, the better
Hmm.
it gets, and the more effective I could become if I had I not had it. And here
Yeah,
I was playing around with this weekend. I downloaded a Gemini AI, and that is remarkable. I mean, that is
mm,
something else. It's of course it's Google's AI, but it's an app, so it's on your iPhone. And not only can you ask it anything, think of it as a Google search, right?
hmm,
And I think it's free. I'm sure there's a charge to it eventually, but so there's many ways you can use it, but it's really more like a Google search where you can ask it a question, it'll give you information back. You
hmm,
also can have a conversation with it.
hmm.
You say, "Hey, tell me about the World War One," and it'll come back and say this, and then you ask it another question, and the voice is so good. It's better than a human being.
Mm.
One, because you're asking, this is the kind of the funny part. When when you have a human being, you're concerned about how you may look or how you may sound. But when you're talking to a machine, there's certain things you act differently, right?
Mm. Mm.
It's a human thing. It's a human psychology where because you care about what they think just by that's just who we are. But if it's a machine, you just don't care, so you'll ask it anything.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and it's
No, it's
but
interesting.
with the
No,
with the Google Gemini, the voice will come back and you're actually having a conversation with somebody, but it's like the smartest guy you've ever met in your life because he knows fucking everything. He knows everything. You could even
Well,
change the voice
yeah,
tone if you want a
yeah,
girl voice or a guy voice or whatever you want, a British voice, you can do it. I have to tell you, it was mind blowing how articulate the information was and how much
yeah.
I learned by having this interaction with this machine. And that's
Well, there's a couple things that strike me as, and I think that you and I have, it's interesting because we have different, we use things differently. We look at few things differently. Your mind works differently than my mind
Mhm.
works. We have things that we do in the course of our day that you do some things that I don't do. I do some things you don't do, and you call yourself an optimist about AI, and I respect that. I don't know that I'd call myself an optimist. I kind of feel like an uncertainist. I
Yeah.
still, and I don't know how if my skepticism is because of how I use or don't use it yet. My history with technology and the skeptical situations I've been in before, or something else. But I think it's if I were to humbly make a recommendation from my limited experience, I think you got to pay attention to it. I don't know
Oh
where
yeah.
it's going, and but I don't think you can pretend it's not happening because it's coming. It's
Yeah.
here. You
Yeah.
know.
You know what it really does, and again, I've spoke about this before, but because I'm dyslexic, writing and I have dysgraphia, which means it's difficult to write, very difficult because my
Hmm.
brain is processing again 1,200 pictures per second. The average person does like 60 or something. So it sounds cool, but it's really not when you're trying to write something or read
Hmm.
something, right? Because you're jumping ahead and it's just the way it is. But anyway, obviously, you got to figure it out. But but with this technology, um, so I've always been very. It takes a long time to write, and then I would ask somebody to edit it, or I had an assistant for 20 something years, so I didn't. They would just review everything before they sent it.
Hmm.
That's how I dealt with it. But now I don't have to worry about those kind of things.
Yep.
I could just talk and think and
Yep.
not have to stop and try to write these things. And or somebody with English as a second language or things like that. It just flattens the the playing field for
Well, aren't
so
there
many
like,
people. Yeah.
yeah, I think there's two ways of looking at it to me anyway. There's like, what can I get the technology to do, and then make decisions on what I would like the technology to do, or if I were delegating a task, what would it be, and can this technology help me with that? Right? And it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
cart before the horse, horse before the cart kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll answer that question because again, I'm not claiming to be an expert in this area, but once I started to understand how fluid this technology was, I kind of this is over the weekend. I went to the next level, and are you familiar with Notebook ML? It's another Google product, but the difference between say an AI agent and a Notebook ML is that um, you can no, think of a notebook more as your brain, and you upload all the documents, and then you give the command, the prompts, I should say, to go and say, listen to this document, or scan this document, give me a summary, listen to this podcast, and giving me a 10-point action list, and it'll go into those documents or
Hmm.
into that podcast or into that video and pull out the information
Hmm.
that's the that is available right now today. It's another Google product, but again, there's many AI models that'll do this, but that is remarkable that you can refer to this website, you can refer to that email, that podcast, and then tell it to actually create a podcast, and it will. It
Yep.
doesn't sound very good, but it does have
Yep.
the ability to search all that information and aggregate it and bring it back to you.
Yeah, and I think that the fact that these things can be set up and are set up to continuously learn
Yes,
is fascinating. But I also, as you speak, I definitely draw the distinction, Jim, between the way that you look at reading and writing and the way that I look at reading and
it's
writing are
totally different.
completely
Yeah,
different ways.
I appreciate you
So
saying that. Yeah,
that's kind of cool because as we
yeah,
continue to talk about it, you'll have the perspective of my perception and I'll have the perspective of yours that we probably wouldn't have otherwise, right? We'd
yeah,
just be living in our own little world.
yeah, yeah. But think how if you had something that you just weren't good at all your life, and then well, it's like it's like the person that's blind all their life, and then they get a surgery, and they see again one day. They never thought they'd be able to see or do that. That's how life changing these technologies could be for people.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have that understanding if you and I hadn't been talking about this for as long as we have. And I appreciate it to the extent that one without that challenge can.
yeah, yeah,
I get it conceptually, no
yeah.
question about it.
But
I think that closing thoughts, because we do have to
yeah, but I
to
want to get
move
your
on.
thoughts on one before we
Sure,
close up, though,
sure.
because I think the biggest impact, and for good, some may say for bad, is education.
Mhm.
This is going to change education. A 4-year degree or learning in general is going to be so changed
Mm,
of how we learn, how we collect information. Think about it. In your life and my life, the only way you could obtain knowledge was to go to a 4-year university and go into a classroom, sit there and learn it. That is over. That is
yeah, it's
completely
been
over. In
over.
fact,
Yeah,
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 and that was from a professor that had spent his entire life learning a particular subject. Um, then for you to look to collect that knowledge or that information, you can only get it in that classroom, right? That was your life at one time.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
a very interesting topic, and I think an episode unto itself. But
it is.
I will say that my attitude about education has been very skeptical for years,
Yep.
and I think teachers and academia have been working themselves out of their own jobs for a long time, and now
Yep.
this guy AI is stepping in saying, "Let me
Yep.
expedite that process for you. Get the fuck out of here."
You're right. That could be a whole another episode. And I have to be respectful as I can. I think some of it's well deserved.
Yeah,
Like they,
I
they
agree.
to indebt a generation of young people with student debt for their salaries and their pensions and all that. That's just wrong, and we can't continue to do that. And
Hey, let's tell AI if it's recording us. That's next episode right there,
yeah.
big guy.
Anyways, so
Thank you, Jim.
all right, man. Happy New Year to you, or Merry Christmas, and
Yeah,
we'll talk to you next year. Huh?
to you and yours as well. See you, man.
All right.